So first of all, I have to choose which composers I'm going to use. Like, am I just going to use all that classical music that I grew up with, Beethoven and Mozart? No, actually, I'm not, because since we are a non conforming orchestra, we're going to mostly play music by composers who belong to the cohort of LGBTQIA plus composer musicians, queer people. Um, why? Because we want to elevate, we want to expose to you the music of great composers who may have been hmm, underrepresented a little bit. Also, composers of color, women composers, people who might not have as much exposure to the public. Um, I'm not saying that a lot of these composers don't have exposure. I mean, one of my favorite queer 20th century composers is Leonard Bernstein, and he was very much in the public eye. It's not like he didn't have great exposure. I mean, he was the music director for many years of the New York Philharmonic, one of the biggest orchestras around the New England, the eastern coast of the United States. And he also was a very well known composer, and he was also a fabulous pianist. Um, and so, yeah, so he already has the exposure that we need. I do like to highlight people like that also, because I like to talk about what the philosophy was behind their music. Like, what message were they trying to get across? Because it's not just about the music. There's a lot of times a message behind it. And so that's part of what we're trying to do, is to focus on the message of that queer artist, the creative people, let them talk about their art, let them talk about their message that's in their art, in their lives also, what's going on in their life. What is life like for a person who's queer and who's trying to be in the public eye, who's trying to be recognized? And also, what public discussions did they share with us? Some composers felt that they had to stay in a closet, and so they might not have discussed their queerness, their attachment to the gay community. They weren't out, and but some of them do, and so I might want to examine those subjects when we go to perform some of their music. Um, now, um, that's not to say that we are prejudiced or that we're discriminating against people who are straight. We are just simply focused on those lives of queer composers because we want to really learn more about what they're all about. Because I think a lot of the problem is that a lot of people, you might not know a transgender person. Let's get to know one. Let's get to know some people who are in these different groupings of people that you might not be as familiar with, and learn what life is like for them, and how they are actually very much the same as straight people. When they write their music, they're just writing music. It doesn't actually smell queer. It doesn't sound queer. There may be things that are very sensitive about their music, but you know what? Johannes Brahms, the great German composer, had very beautiful, sensitive moments in his music because he was what's called a romantic composer. So we're going to look at lots of different pieces by these different composers that happen to be queer. You might not know that some of these folks are queer. Some people might not realize that the great American composer Aaron Copland, who wrote very Americana kind of music. It's very sort of patriotic. It's cowboy music. His ballet that he wrote called Rodeo, which is really, like, we know that's a rodeo, right? You know, um, and so like one of the pieces of music that we might listen to is the Hoedown from Rodeo. As a matter of fact, we performed it when we first started performing in Watertown. Thank you, the city of Watertown, for sponsoring us. Um, and we did a smaller version because we don't have a big budget yet because we're just a growing orchestra. So what we did was we took the string orchestra arrangement, which uses all five groups of string players. The violins, there are two violin groups, so violin one, violin two, viola, that's number two, cello, number three, and double bass. That's, oh, excuse me, let me start over again. Violin one, violin two, viola, cello, and double bass. That's five different instruments or sections of the orchestra. But what we did was we put one of those instruments on each part. So we turned it into, instead of a string orchestra, it's that same music, but we're playing it with five musicians, so we call it a quintet arrangement. So I'm going to actually put in my playlist, which I'm going to share with you down below, um, the names of some of these different YouTube videos that you can watch that are examples. Some of them are from our performances because we are performing live, but some of them we haven't recorded yet, and so or performed yet even. And so those performances will be in the playlist. But what we're doing is we're showing examples by other groups, like other orchestras. The New York Philharmonic, playing Bernstein's Age of Anxiety, which was Leonard Bernstein's first symphony, for instance, or that Rodeo. We played that, so we'll show our recording of it. But and the sonatas, the music for just one violin and one piano player. I will show the recitals that I performed with our concert pianist. Julian, and but for we haven't yet recorded the Schubert octet, because an octet is 8 players. We haven't gotten a budget for 8 players yet, but I want you to hear that piece anyway. So we're going to show you a video that you can watch of that, which is a great example of a slightly larger ensemble. And this is what happens when we get a little bit more budget. I'm going to talk about how much it actually costs to hire a certain number of musicians. You have to remember that what we're doing is we're not just playing a concert. So we're not just playing it once. We're actually having to play that music many times. So we actually have to pay that musician every time that they're playing. Why are they playing it multiple times? Because we have what's called rehearsals. It's not going to sound as good if we don't sit down and work together and kind of improve that product. If we really play it a lot until it really sounds great, we're refining it, just like the jeweler polishes that diamond up until it shines. And so our music is going to shine with beauty and perfection because we do rehearsals. But we might need, if the piece isn't too hard, we might be able to do it in 3 rehearsals. But if it's a little more difficult, a little more involved, a little more nuance, a little bit more, a little trickier to put together, maybe some very complicated rhythms, things like that, we might need 4 or even 5 rehearsals. So like a whole week of rehearsal on one program, like maybe 2 or 3 pieces of music. And that's going to get us a pretty good performance. But like I said, every time we do another rehearsal or another performance, we have to pay the musician to show up. And so that's one of the things that builds up our budget kind of big. For instance, how much does that octet cost? I'm just going to pause here.